Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for uh, clicking on my name, on the thumbnail, however you found this platform. Just want to say thank you, first and foremost, for doing that. It has been a long time coming for this. I think anybody, people in my family, friends who I've told this to, that I was going to be doing some kind of a podcast, doing some kind of a video blog. I'm not even exactly sure what it's going to be called ultimately, but I think something that I would like to do, at least with this particular platform and what I'm trying to do here, is I want it to sort of be organic. I want it to evolve over time, and I want people to see the progress in that. I'm going to do my best to not cut up the videos or try to make edits. I'm going to try to keep it as authentic and as real as possible. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to just record. There'll be some editing here and there potentially that I will do, but I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum. But thank you again for tuning in. However you found this podcast, be it, like I said, if you clicked my name, if you found me through somebody else or somebody recommended to, if I send you a link, if you just randomly found me, no, regardless of how you did it, thank you so much for coming and tuning in. And like I said, this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this for a very, very long time now, and I'm finally getting to it. Thank you, everybody who has been pushing me to do it. Special shout outs to my sister, Saray, Milosha Saray Robinson, my brother, Sir, my other sister, Vercel, my mom, my other brother, Deshaun, everybody who has contributed to getting me to this point and being a part of that. Again, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, because this is something that I think that I need, and I think it's something that hopefully in some way, shape, or form, it will be something that at least one person needs to hear. And I'm going to try to get to a little bit more of the content in a second, but I'm going to officially try to make this my official first post. And I will try my best to not make it too long, because I can talk for a very, very long time about things. Give a little bit about me, a little bit about my background, try to get people in tune with who I am and what the podcast, video blog, this platform will ultimately be about. At this point right now, I don't even have the channel set up. So this is like super, super early in terms of, getting everything lined up and appropriately set up to move for the future. So I'm most likely going to do that today. It's October 31st, 2021. And today I'm going to try to set the channel up. I'm going to have the official name and all of that stuff, so I just need to give that some thought. But I wanted to sit down because I felt inspired to potentially do the official first post today and right now. So I think what I'm going to title this first post, when I gave it some thought, I was on my way, driving home from church and eating. And like I said, I felt inspired, and I thought maybe I should start with the most foundational thing that I can think of, and what I would like the platform to sort of be about. And so I thought about it. I'm not even sure how I'm going to open up these vlogs, podcasts, the platform when I'm doing a video, but something that I actually had on my phone some time ago. I actually had to restart my phone, so I actually need to put the signature back on there. But there is a phrase, and I wanted to be a little bit more profound. As you get to know me more and more, I'm a super duper thinker. And so I look for things that are profound. I have always had a big respect for wisdom, intellectual things, studying, learning, understanding. And I think the foundation of all those things is truth. So I think the name of this first post is going to be, What is Truth? And I'll dig into that a little bit. But the phrase that I was speaking of a second ago is Ionios Logos. I have a company that I started, and the name of the company is Ethos, Pathos, Logos. If you're keen to it, Ethos, Pathos, and Logos are the three literary appeals to an audience. If it's a form of entertainment, if it's writing, if it's vlogging, when we do that as writers or authors or creators of content, you're using one of those three appeals to an audience in order to persuade them, in order to get across your points, etc. And so the name of the company that I incorporated under is Ethos, Pathos, Logos, and it's EPO for short. And so when I thought about it, Ionios Logos is it's the Greek for eternal word. And I think, at least from my perspective, the thing that I believe in, the thing that I value, I am a Christian, and I come from this healthy position that Christianity has helped to usher into my life, particularly in my adult years, the importance of truth. And this platform is going to delve heavily into religion, philosophy. We'll touch on politics. We'll touch on culture. We'll touch on all of those things that I think are important to people. Some of the topics are going to be taboo. There will be times that I may say certain things or hold a particular position on hot topics that might not be popular. But I am not afraid to take those on. I want all the smoke. But I think that we can do that respectfully and do it with healthy discussion, healthy debate. And from time to time, I will bring people on who have different views, who come from different backgrounds, who have different worldviews. And we'll discuss these ideas and topics. I have a lot of friends who are non-believers, and I love them, right? Personally, I love them as people. I love that fact that they have different perspectives. I just think that in certain things and with certain topics, I think I'm right and I think they're wrong, and we just discuss. And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. And I think that's something as well, too, that I would like this platform to help to push. It's okay to be wrong if you're willing to be reasonable and discuss and check yourself from time to time. And you have a healthy motivation to become more right and align yourself with truth. And so I think that's the foundation of what this channel is going to be. I thought doing a first post, give you the first name of the post, and we'll do a little bit of content now. So this might have a part 2 to it, but all those things being considered, that's where I kind of want to be. I want to make sure that that we understand as people, as those who are providing content, that that's very, very important. This is not, for me, a attempt to get financial gain. If financial gain comes from it, I consider that to be a plus. But my major point, I'm finding more value in, bringing up these things, speaking on them, and really trying to get discussions going to help people as best that I can, the best that I know how. And that is to, truth, honesty. Let's be reasonable. Let's discuss, and let's not be afraid to do it. And so this first post is called What is Truth? Before I get into that, a little bit about me and my background. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. I am 31, just turned 31 this year, back in July. I have always been the type of person who has always been very patient, very calm, and very, very observational. I'm a listener. In my adult years, I think when you listen a lot, eventually you kind of, especially when you're somebody who loves to engage in discussions, topics, debates, and those kinds of things. The more you listen, the more information you gain, which is a great thing. But there can be times when, you want to speak, right? Because you take those ideas, they churn through your mind. It's a process going on, and you ultimately get to some conclusions. And what's the point of doing that if you don't at any point in time get a chance to share and actually contend with other ideas and contend with their own, right? And I think one of the beautiful checks of truth, when you think you have something truthful to say, when you're making a truth claim, it's to put it out there and let it be challenged. And if it holds water, you should be able to do that confidently, and it should hold, right, as being something that is true. And then you can move forward with confidence in the thing that you, in the claim that you made about the truth. And so, I grew up in Baltimore for 22 years. Went to school in Maryland. Undergrad, I did my graduate program in Florida. After Florida, I moved to Chicago and worked in Chicago for 3 to 4 years. After Chicago, I moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, where I've been here for 4 years. If you do the math, that time frame, here I am, 31. And I think what's important about me telling that story or giving you a little bit more about myself is to familiarize yourself. I think the best way to, start a relationship is to build rapport. And that's something that I would like to do. I want to build a relationship with the listeners, people who appreciate the content and those who might not. And then hopefully, start to build a community around these ideas and start to really, contend again. I'm going to say and probably repeat a lot of these same sort of ideas because I think it's extremely, extremely important for people to understand the importance of the truth and having understanding and being okay with other people's perspectives, being okay with being told you're wrong. Because really what that does is it should help to motivate you to become more right, to align yourself with what is right, to align yourself with what is true. And so a little bit more about my background. I grew up, like I mentioned before, I'm a Christian. I grew up Christian my entire life. When I went off to school in undergrad, I started to engage with other people, college, university, it's unity and diversity, right? Which is, I believe, where the word university comes from. And you meet a lot of people who don't have or share your same background. Like I said, I've always been an observant. I've always been, I can remember it at a very young age, I started to read the Bible and I started to ask very, very profound questions. And I started to try to get at the heart and the essence of what the words are trying to say, which I think is greatly where the inspiration of Scripture lies, in what God is saying to us as human beings. And I would like to try to use that as a foundation of having ideas around everything. And this will not be a, particularly a religious platform, but it's just to give you guys the idea of where I'll be coming from, the foundation that I sit on. Because when I have conversations with people and when I bring people on, if people want to join or, open up the discussion, sometimes it'll be free form. Sometimes we might do it. I don't know. It'll be organic. Like I said, this is going to be a growing thing, and it'll be fluid and it'll evolve over time. But that's something that you'll constantly hear me say. For people I agree with and people I don't agree with, I am the type of person that loves clarity, and I'm going to try to help people understand throughout time and having these discussions why it's so important. Context, clarity, definitions. What do we mean when we say that? What is a truth claim? How do you know when you're making a truth claim? How do you back up a truth claim with evidence? What is the nature of evidence itself? What kind of evidence? Reasoning, logic, all of these things really become really, really important when you're trying to ethos, pathos, logos, persuade, when you're trying to have conversations, when you're trying to make statements, and make arguments, clear arguments. Arguments are not who can be the loudest. Arguments are a set of propositions to establish, you know, an idea, right? And to do so on a good foundation that makes sense, that is objective, even though we all have subjective truths that we hold very firmly. The objective truth is that which we can all agree to, not just who you are, where you grew up, etc. Right? It's like science, right? There's certain things that we've discovered in the universe that just work. Gravity just works. That's an objective truth. It's regardless of opinion. Doesn't matter if you like gravity. Doesn't matter if you think gravity works. Gravity seems to work, right? We'll discuss some of those ideas too, and how science fits into culture, how it fits into philosophy, because I think there are also a lot of misconceptions there. There's a huge number of people that I think don't quite understand even the foundations of science. That's extremely important. And just discussing these ideas. And I'm not worried too much. Like I said, this will be fluid. This will be live. I will do my best to articulate everything that I'm saying clearly and concisely. I'll try to also make sure that I do it honestly. And there will be times when I misspeak. We misspeak all the time. I don't think we necessarily have to be afraid of that just because it's in video. I understand the dangers, and I understand why a lot of people do cut up videos and why they do a lot of editing, you know, taking certain things out, because it's very, very easy to misconstrue what a person is saying. It's very easy to misinterpret what people are saying. And because it's a video, you don't really get, the person speaking doesn't get an opportunity to sort of go back and speak to the person, make sure that they understood. You know, happens all the time, all over YouTube, all over platforms, videos, all kinds of misquoting or, you know, misreading or those kinds of things. And all those things are important. All of it's very, very important. And I think we have to dedicate some time as content creators, and we also, as listeners, have to dedicate time to understanding within context, appropriately, right, not misquoting, and doing it honestly, transparently, etc. And if you have a problem, feel free to comment. I'm here for it. 1,000 billion%. I'm also going to try to let my personality shine through as well. I don't want to be super formal. That's why I don't come in with this, you know, some kind of a welcoming tagline or something like that. Even though I might develop something, I think it'll be cool to have one. You know, I want this to be legit. I don't want it to be so informal that it has no appeal of ethos or credibility, because like I said, I've always been a thinker. This will, for the most part, be an opinion podcast. I will do my best to stick as close to facts as I can when it's appropriate, because facts and opinions, they both have their place. It's just knowing when the appropriate time to put such things forward, and to make sure you clarify and let people know this is my opinion and this is what I believe to be a fact. And so something that I've been meaning to push forward in all of my discussions are all of these ideas. And so that's my background. That's kind of where I come from, who I am, what I believe in, the foundation that I stand on, and where I am, right? And so to get to the topic, or at least to speak a little bit more on what the title is, as I've said all that leading up to this point, what is truth? I was actually watching a video of a game that I actually play, and they use that phrase. I think whenever you hear the phrase, what is truth, the most popular time that phrase is ever used, or the most recognizable moment when the phrase is used, is biblically. I'll do this a lot. I also love analogies. But again, because I'm Christian, I believe the Bible is telling the truth when it talks about the historical perspective, the historical position of the New Testament and the Old Testament as well. But in this particular case, since we're talking about the phrase "what is truth," it comes particularly from the New Testament. And so what's going on biblically is Jesus, I'm sure you're familiar with the story. If you're not, we'll talk about it. That's actually something that I probably shouldn't take for granted. And that's something I will do my best to stick away. I don't take things for granted. I appreciate a lot. I am sarcastic sometimes. I'll smile it off, and I think people will start to get a little bit more of a sense, like I said, of my personality. But I think the other day maybe I go off on rants too, so that's a thing. So please bear with me. Hopefully this will be entertaining. Hopefully you'll either like the content enough to stick with me, or maybe you just like the sound of my voice. But either way, I go off on tangents. So I was talking to a friend some time ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, roughly. And I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about, but I remember specifically asking them, did they know the first lines of the Bible? I, obviously being a Christian, know the first lines of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Not the full verse, but just the first, I thought that was something that was pretty standard. The Bible's been around for 2,000 years or so. That's not meant to be very specific. There is a specific amount of time when the Bible was constructed and, we'll talk about all that stuff. I don't want to go on another tangent on top of a tangent. I'm on a tangent to a tangent. But I thought it was just common knowledge that people knew exactly what it was, but it wasn't the case. And I think that was a check for myself to make sure I don't assume. Even in that moment, I was kind of doing it in a joking manner, right? But again, when I'm meaning to tell jokes, I think hopefully you guys will get a sense for, me when I'm joking, when I'm being sarcastic. And if not, I will happily clarify, and will more than admit when I'm wrong, if I truly believe that I'm wrong. And I think everyone should do that to a degree. So the story, Jesus has started his ministry, and he's done all of these things leading up to this point. Things from miracles, showing the signs of who he is, the sermons, the teachings. He's selected the 12 disciples. He's going about doing what he says is his Father's work. And we get to the point where he has caused enough turmoil, I think, for the time, right? The Jewish people being some of the most religious people throughout all of history. Jesus kind of came and challenged and was a check against the established keepers of the law, the Sanhedrin, Pharisees, and the Sadducees. And he made the claim that he was the Son of God, essentially. And he demonstrated it through the miracles and the teachings and all of these things and the challenging. But they got to a point in his ministry where he had caused enough like is it turmoil? I don't know if the turmoil is the best word, but he caused enough of that, and they came to get him. And they arrest him under cover of night, and they take him and they bring him to first they have sort of a trial, sort of their own Jewish sort of trial of Jesus, where they're basically trying to get him to clarify to a degree, which is very interesting from a Christian perspective. And I think we're going to talk about this a lot, about the uniqueness of the Bible, the biblical story, and all of those things. It doesn't necessarily prove, in some mathematical sense of proof, the truth of the New Testament per se. But what it does help us to recognize as listeners and people who, take seriously history, it helps us to understand that they believe that they're telling the truth, which gives some reliability to the testimony that they give. But ultimately, they take him, they do this trial, and they're basically they're questioning him to see if what he has been saying is worthy of being called a crime before they take him to be tried by Pontius Pilate. And so they hold this little mini trial, and ultimately they ask him straight up, are you the king of the Jews? Are you the Messiah promised by the prophets of old? Right? After they they get some witnesses to, and, Jesus says, ask those who have heard what I've said, who have seen what I've been doing all of this time in the teachings and the things that I've said. And they do that, but then they come out and they just say, you know what? Forget all the witnesses and all that stuff. Are you? Just straight up tell us right now, are you? And the New Testament, the different Gospels, some of them have a little bit of a difference in what he says and what he replies, but ultimately it has the same conclusion. He says, I am, right? First off, the phrase I am is a specific understanding that the Jews know that they have when they're referring to God. Okay, so Jesus makes the claim that he's God. Some people make the argument that Jesus never said, I'm God, worship me. But he does it so often throughout the New Testament. And I think there's meaning and purpose behind it. And I don't think that should be trivialized. I think it should be thought about and it should be understood. He doesn't have to say, I'm Jesus, I'm God, necessarily in those words. The first century Jews, and we can, like I said, talk about, maybe have another podcast where we dig a little bit deeper into why we believe that Jesus is God, because of the certain statements that he makes and some of the conclusions drawn after the resurrection and the ascension of Jesus into heaven. But he uses that phrase, I am, which in the Greek is ago eimi. In, I believe it's John, he says, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. That's a direct quote from Daniel in the Old Testament. And if you remember seeing the movie The Passion of Christ, I believe in the scripture it actually backs this as well too. The high priest Caiaphas tears his garment, which is the official declaration of blasphemy, which is punishable by death. But the Jews didn't have the power to put people to death because they were under the rule of the Roman Empire. And so once they get him to say that, once he admits that, once he says, yes, I'm the Son of God, they take him to Caiaphas, and the Sanhedrin and his captors take him to Pontius Pilate to be put to death. And they have a conversation with Pilate. They basically say, hey, this man Jesus breaks our laws. Pilate says, why don't you try him by your own laws? And he says, well, they say, well, we don't have the power to put anyone to death. So Pilate, okay, well, he has a conversation with Jesus. And he asks him, are you a king? Right? Should not be trivialized. This is in context. And all of this stuff, I said a moment ago, context. He asked Jesus if he's a king. There's a number of different things that we can conclude from this that some theologians and historians maybe speculate on. Why ask him if he's a king? Part of the reason, I think, and I agree with some commentators and some, like I said, theologians and historians about this, is, in other words, if you're a king, does the Roman Empire have a reason to be concerned? Right? Could be backed in this sense. In this sense is when Jesus replies and he says, well, first he says, is this a question basically that you're asking, or this is what you've heard other people say? And then the famous response is Jesus replies and says, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were of this world, then would not my servants be fighting, so that I would not be delivered to the Jews? And Pilate, I'm imagining in this moment, is probably maybe confused, right? Like, what are you saying? You're a god, one of the gods, or something? Like, Pilate is Roman, right? And Jesus then famously replies, "It's to this end I was born. It's to this end I came into the world. This is the reason that I'm here." In other words, I came to be put to death. I don't necessarily know if Pilate understood in his response, if he was saying, "It's to this end I was born," in terms of saying like came into the world to be put to death. But whether you want to speculate on what Pilate thought or not, the point is he said, "I came into this. It's to this end I was born. It's to this end I came into the world, that I may bear witness to the truth." And this is the point. Pontius Pilate famously replies, "What is truth?" And the Bible says, after asking this, basically, he went out and he declared Jesus innocent. Said, "I find no fault in this man." And so that is the foundation of so many things. Like I mentioned before, Christianity is, in my view, very unique in the sense that the leader, the one that starts it all, the one that everything depends on, from a Christian perspective, biblically, all of Christianity hinges on Christ. And he being the leader, the starter of Christianity, makes a strong push in trying to help us, followers of Christ, those who are trying to be Christ-like Christians, and also the writers of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, later Paul, and all of those who would come after, makes a strong push to try to get them to understand the importance of truth. Ultimate truth, if there is a such thing as ultimate truth, then it seems to me reasonable to assume that all the other things about reality as we know it, mass energy, time, space, all of it, is going to be derivative of ultimate truth. If there is a such thing as ultimate truth, if there's a such thing as God. And I'm going to say that on the platform a lot. I'm not just going to assume God, even though, again, my position, I'm a believer, but I do understand and can operate at a few different levels, right? There's going to be those of us who are believers who technically, when we speak or we're talking philosophically, we're reasoning with other people, we're trying to maybe even debate or convince people that what we're saying is true. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're saying, I understand that I'm a human being and I operate in this world to some degree. I function in this world. We're having a conversation now to somebody who might be a non-believer, and you are saying at one level we agree on, right? There's a reality. We have an experience. There's a lot of deep thought about consciousness and what all of that stuff sort of means. And scientists are going to work to try to figure out where consciousness comes from and all of that stuff. And there's a big debate about that kind of stuff out in the intellectual world, intellectual space, between the writers, theologians, historians, biologists, chemists, commentators, a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers out there about these ideas and how and where we find foundation in them. And so all of Christianity throughout Jesus' entire life, if you want to go further back, you want to grab the Old Testament, you want to say all of this is kind of, and this is the beauty of the Christian story, all of this is kind of culminating to this one point, the crucifixion of Jesus. And on his trial, he points out truth. That is profound, significant, and should not be trivialized. Not even by us Christians. The importance of truth. And like I said, the ultimate sense, but also in the things based in our reality, the things that we can see and the things that we can't. And I think that's extremely important. So what is truth? What does it mean? Where does it come from? Why is it important? I think in 2021, We live sort of in a postmodern era. In the information age, we have more information in the world that we live in than we've ever had in the history of the world. If you combine all of history into the age that we live in, it wouldn't even compare to the amount of information we have access to. And as a result, potentially, truth can become a little more distorted, a little bit harder to come to conclusions about, because there's so much information. I mean, regardless of what aisle or what side of the debate you fall on in any of the hot topics, right? Everybody seems to have legitimate points. Everybody seems to have some evidence that they can rely on. Everybody's an expert. Everybody has a study they can quote. But what is truth? What is it really? And how do we know when we hear it? And how do we hold ourselves to it and hold other people to it as well? And there has to be a balance. And I think Jesus Christ is the perfect example of how to do all these things. And he shows the importance of it when he's about to be crucified and pointing out the truth. And Pilate goes and declares him innocent. And as you know, the story goes on. They kept pushing. Jesus was chastised. They kept pushing. And ultimately, Jesus was crucified. And so that, I think, is going to be the first post, the first vlog, the first podcast. I think I might call it a podcast officially. We'll see. But ask yourselves that. Really think about, like I said, don't trivialize. There's a lot of thought and a lot of complexity in writing. This could be another conversation. When we write or when we write and we create purposefully. And because it's purposeful, we put a lot of ourselves, a lot of our reason, a lot of our expression into the thing that we're creating. And we do so intentionally. And as a result of that, we try to be specific in what we say, right? If you're an author and you're writing a book about whatever topic, even if it's fiction, you don't want to spend a lot of time writing about things or using words that don't matter, right? You think about a movie, you know how much content they film in movies that they cut out, right? We only see 2 hours and 30 minutes of a movie, but they probably have filmed. I don't even want to say how much they probably filmed. It's probably an insane amount of hours of content and footage and all of those things, but they only use about 2 hours and 30 minutes of it, right? Because it's specific. You want to get across a point. You want to do it concisely, and you don't want people to get confused, and you don't want people to be disinterested. And so, what is truth? Something we will definitely explore in future podcasts. Something we will definitely discuss. We will get other people's ideas and opinions. This is the foundation of so many things. So many things that we love, that we care about, and so much of the reality that we have to deal in this life. And so I appreciate you all. Thank you so much again for tuning in. This will be potentially the first post. I'm going to try to set up the channel. As soon as I set up the channel, I'm going to officially post it. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you guys find this interesting. It's going to be crazy because sometimes I don't even know what's going to pop into my mind. But I do it honestly as best I can. And I'm really interested in the conversations and the discussions and tuning in with you guys and hearing other people's perspectives, and then also debating, because at the end of the day, there are a couple of things that we can say about truth. And I hold this position. This may be one of the major first topics of debate. Truth is exclusive. My example. In math, by the way, is the one field of study, the one discipline, albeit abstract, which is very interesting. It's abstract. In other words, abstract meaning it exists as concept in our minds, right? I can't physically show you the number one. And this is a good experiment. Anybody listen to this, anybody who doesn't think this is true, ask somebody who may challenge you on the idea that math is abstract and you can't show you the number one. Say, show me the number one. Tell somebody that. And they may show you, they may draw, or they may write the number one on paper. And the counter to that is that's not the number one. That's a representation of the number one. It's semantical in essence, right? Show me the number one. Can't be done because it's an abstract term, right? Numbers are a concept of quantity, as I've heard some definitions say. And so in math, when you do math, and math is the relationship between numbers, is a definition, more or less. But we do a word problem, or you're working out, you're solving a mathematical equation, 2 + 2, right? And these are just examples. This is how you make a claim. The claim that I made, let's break it down a little bit. The claim that I made is that truth is exclusive. The example I'm going to use in math, which math is, I don't think I actually said this, but math is the only discipline where we have rigorous proofs. Proofs don't exist scientifically in that way because what we work with in science is confidence, right? Like I said before, gravity is a fact as far as we're confident that it's a fact. There is obviously always going to be the potential for us to be wrong, which is why we deal in confidence and probability, not certainty or proof, right? But in math, we have proof, right? So the example here is you might say, well, is that a contradiction in science, right? Because there's no proof, then can you say that truth is exclusive? It's exclusive and truthful within the parameters of the world as we understand them, based in logic, right? And it's, again, the context, right? It's like, okay, well, gravity works here. Do we know that it works the same on a planet that's 10 billion light years away from the Earth? Well, we don't know. But here on the planet, we have certain parameters. We can define what those parameters are. We say, given this, gravity seems to work and operate, and we can be 95, 98% confident that it works. That's objective truth. That's us making truth claims about the objective world, right? But back to math. So math, the expression 2 + 2. The answer, as some of you already have thought, is 4. It's one answer. 5 is wrong. 1 is wrong. 6 is wrong. 1,000 is wrong. So the idea here is truth is exclusive. There's one correct answer and every other answer is incorrect. So truth is exclusive. Like I said, it might be a controversial thing to say, but I'm here for it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for just being willing to listen through this almost 45-minute video now. I will maybe in the future, when I start to look at the tools provided to me, and when I start to look at, the recordings later, I can timestamp so that it's maybe easier to navigate through the content. Maybe give a table of contents. I don't know. I don't want to lose viewers because things are too long, and I hear that being a thing when you do videos. You don't want them to be too long, but you do want them to be. I am more interested in the content, like I said, and the discussion, and so I'm not really worried about the time. If it's too long for you, then shoot me a comment. I can give out, my email and those kinds of things, and get people to send me an email, say, hey, Micah, I was interested in what you had to say. I've been liking your podcast and the content and the platform. Can you kind of send me a cliff note of what this particular podcast was about? And then, so I can maybe navigate through the information and content a little quicker. Or I just want to know exactly what your thoughts were. in this post because I can't dedicate the 45 minutes. Who knows? I might have 3-hour podcasts. Boy, I can talk. And especially when I bring on people like my sister, she's really excited about being a part of this as well too. Like my brother's really excited. And so when we start having those conversations, they can last a long time. And sometimes we might do some live sessions because you get to engage with people live. And I think there's an authenticity as well to, doing things and have it be recorded, showing the mistakes and the human quality, because we make mistakes. And again, I don't want to be afraid of that. So that's me. That's my life. That's my thought. That's the first podcast. Something else I want to leave with everybody is I hold this to be true. Wisdom begins with the fear of God. And that's another topic that we can go into to big discussion on. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all. We'll definitely get better at intros, outros, because again, I want it to be legit. I want this to be as awesome as it possibly can. So thank you guys. Be blessed. Deuces. Thanks, everybody.